This is Paul. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you, Paul.
Great, thanks.
Just barely.
I don't see Richard.
All right. Do I have a mouse over here for this or not?
There's one right here. It won't work for you.
I don't know. If I'm going to turn on my video, I think I need it.
Oh, you can use the keypad here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, just go right there and click it when you're ready.
All right. We call this meeting of the City Council to order. Our regular meeting. Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all. Doing this by yourself is difficult. I need you guys to speak up a little bit.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right. We have a couple guests tonight, which I just want to first I want to say hello to Paige Peterson, Finance Director, starting this coming Monday, I believe. So Paige, welcome. We also have Paul Vander Veen here. Paul, you're obviously welcome. I just want to let you know that given the fact this is a Zoom meeting, we do not have a call to the community, so there's not an opportunity to speak. Okay. All right, with that, we'll get started on our agenda. First item on the agenda is recognition of the Employee of the Quarter. As you know, this is one of those items that I am very excited about each quarter, to be able to recognize an outstanding employee, particularly an employee that is voted Employee of the Quarter by his fellow employees. So it's not a management decision. And so our Employee of the Quarter is Richard Alvarado. He was, at the time he earned this award, he was a Public Works staff member. Since then, he has actually received a vote of confidence from the management of the city and has been promoted to the Public Works Director. So for Richard, we have a $50 gift certificate to Ace Hardware. We hope that he'll use it for something for himself and not just all honeydews. So I hope that you can all remember Richard, and if you happen to run across him at City Hall, if you would say congratulations to him. That brings us to our consent agenda. We have item 5A through G. Is there any member of council who would like to take anything off the consent agenda so that it can be discussed separately? If you'll raise your hand, I'll call on you, and at this point I don't see any hands coming up. Mr. Vice Mayor, you're on the phone. Do you have anything? We can unmute Mr. Vice Mayor. I tried to unmute him. Can you unmute the Vice Mayor? There we go. All right. Vice Mayor, do you have anything on consent you'd like to have taken off?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
All right, moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Brainerd Watson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I don't see any opposed, and I'm not hearing any, so the ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted as presented. The next item of business is a public hearing for the proposed city budget. We have a presentation from staff from Lars. Hello, Lars.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just as a matter of procedure, Mayor, would you like me to present now before the public hearing or later in the special meeting? I have just a few updates on the budget.
I'd say go ahead and make your updates now, and then if there are any public comments, we can take them now. Then we'll go on to the adoption of the budget in our special meeting.
That sounds good. I will share my screen because I have a PowerPoint. Can you all see my slides here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So tonight we're in the second phase of special budget adoption. We will have the public hearings for the city budget slids and CFD. Some of those occur in separate official meetings. But with the budget adoption, we also adopt the position roster that is proposed to council from city management, as well as the 5-year capital plan. And then later, a month from now, we will adopt the special district tax levies. I'd like to give a quick update on how COVID impacts the city's budget. Have sales tax up for May collections, which is from the April time period in the actual business. So this is the full shutdown month. And you'll see that overall, we're very close to what we received in May of 2019. It's a 0% change, just under $2,000. However, if you look at the subtotal line, which excludes the construction sales tax, which we like to look at that particularly, it's 6% down. And in the estimates that I prepared earlier this year, I put a 33% decrease. So this is surprisingly less of an impact than I had put it in the estimate. So looking at the categories, the retail sales line is up 32% over the previous May in 2019. Then our restaurant and bars decreased by 62%. Utilities is up 9%. I think something must have happened in May of 2019. We had probably a delayed payment of some sort, showing that increase. Our rentals as well are coming in well. And then the other category, which is down 64%. And other, of course, includes a conglomerate of various categories, but also in there is the hotel, bed tax, transportation, communication, use tax, tangible personal property rental, things like that. If we look at fiscal year to date, so this is transactions from July through May of this fiscal year, we are trending at 9% over in the category without construction sales tax and 11% over, including construction sales tax. Of course, this is helped by the very robust economy up until the COVID period. So this will decrease slightly with the last quarter of this fiscal year. And then other revenue impacts, I presented this, I believe, in the last meeting we had for the month of April. So now looking at May, our state shared sales tax is down 11% compared to May of last year. State shared income tax, remember that's a fixed amount. And we know that because it's collections distributed from 2 years prior. And our vehicle license tax, which has to do with licensing of vehicles, the fee that's collected on those is down 29%. Overall, also just a negative revenue amount in recreation services, as some of the refunds we have actually impacted our revenue on a negative basis for May, cancellation of programs. Building permit and plan review fees are substantially down. There's essentially very little activity in the month of May in that category. And moving on, now I'm going to talk about what changes were made to the budget from what was presented to you for the tentative adoption. We did not change any of the expenditure budget. However, we did modify revenue estimates in the budget based on updated numbers given to us from the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. These are actual numbers that have been given to us. The state shared sales tax is going to be estimated down further than what we had put in tentatively. That's down 96,567. State shared income tax went up slightly, and partially the up movement here is because the league was able to utilize updated population estimates on this final number that they gave us. The one they gave us early in the spring included population estimates from July 1st of 2018, and now they're including July 1st of 2019. So the other big number here that I'm sure council is aware of is the Arizona CARES Fund distribution. That's the allocation that the state or the governor's office has provided to all the cities and towns and counties in Arizona for the CARES Act funding. So Litchfield's allocation is $738,895. So we put that into next year's budget as their estimated revenue. The other changes besides the revenue is we made a few adjustments to the position roster proposed to council for adoption. The Public Works Manager position is proposed to change to a Deputy Public Works Director title. And also with some changes to the preschool, we increased the full-time equivalents in the preschool aide position so that they can have multiple classes there. To decrease the number of students, I believe Matthew Williams could answer any questions on that. And finally, the last slide I have, I just wanted to remind council and the public of what the budget number is that we're looking at adopting. So the total budget's $19,743,726. Overall, that's a 4% increase from the previous fiscal year and under our state imposed expenditure limitation. And with that, council, I'm available for any questions.
We're going to start out with questions if we have any from the public, but we do not. We have no one who has requested to speak on the budget. So if there are questions from council, we can entertain those now.
Mayor.
I can't see anybody. Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Lars, I believe you said in the CARES Act, you've got 700 and some odd thousand. I remember seeing a number we were getting about 70 some odd thousand. Are those different funds or different numbers, or did I miss something?
I guess Vice Mayor Faith, I'm not sure where that 70,000 came from. This is the per capita distribution that was announced just a few weeks ago by the governor's office.
Okay. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, the 70,000 is a different number. It's money that's coming through the community block grant program, which we normally do not qualify, but because of COVID-19, we do qualify, and we're going to get 70,000, which is specifically earmarked for PPE equipment that I think goes to our senior facilities, assisted living facilities, and then the balance, which is about 35,000, that we can use for rental assistance and those kinds of expenses for low-income residents in Litchfield Park. So different.
Okay, I saw those in the agenda items, but I wasn't sure how that 70 and the 700 all work together. But that answers it. Great, thank you.
Yeah, they don't work together at all. They're totally separate.
Good.
Any other questions from council? I can't see everybody. Hopefully there's no more questions. I've got to figure out how. Lars, I need to get your screen off. There you go. Perfect. Now I can see everybody again. Is there any questions from anybody on the council? Was that a hand by Susan?
Yes, but I wasn't on the council, so I was going to wait.
Okay, well, I'm calling on you now because you're the only hand up.
I just might have missed something. This is a public hearing. I know you said there were no requests to speak, but just as a formality, could you be sure to open and close the public hearing?
You know, I can. Nobody brought my hammer, so I'll do it this way. Public hearing is hereby open. We've already had a staff report, and I've already called for public comments, but again, if there's anybody from the public that would wish to comment, I'm happy to entertain that, even though you did not email in as you were supposed to email to let us know that you wanted to speak. And we've had questions from council, so at this point, without objection from anybody on the council, I'm going to close the public hearing. Now we have another public hearing. I hope my knuckles hold out. I'm going to open the public hearing on the Streetlight Improvement District, SLIDS. Staff report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On this item, I really don't have much to say other than the Streetlight Improvement Districts levy a tax to cover the electricity to pay for the lights in each of those districts. The rates are actually going down slightly. That's related to the fact that property values are going up by the maximum allowed of 5% in those districts, and the electricity costs stay about the same, so you'll see the rates decrease likewise. And that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Okay, next item is public comment. We have not received any requests to speak on this item, but if there's a member of the public who would like to speak, if they would speak up, we will recognize you. Seeing none, are there any questions from council? Okay, I don't see any questions from council, so we're going to close the public hearing. Next item is item C, which is adoption of ordinance 2244. This ordinance would amend our tax code in the TPT area to conform it with the model tax code amendments that have been made between 2012 and 2014. Is there any discussion of council concerning this ordinance? If not, can I get a motion to adopt the ordinance 20-244 on the model tax code?
Motion to approve, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second, this is Tom.
Second from Tom Rostosi. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? I see no one with any opposition, so the motion is adopted unanimously. Next item is Resolution 20-468 to amend our citywide fee schedule. This is also presented by Mr. Johnson. Hopefully he's still here.
Thank you, Mayor.
I see him now.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Your picture shuffled around. It's in a different
Thank you,
spot.
Mayor. Yes, thank you. So the citywide fee schedule is something that we've been trying to adopt annually in conjunction with the budget, just to keep up to date this document. So most of the changes here have already been before council. So this document incorporates those. Included is the city aquatic rental fees that were approved by council. I believe it was in March. Also, the dark fiber per linear foot fee and the video service provider license fees, those were adopted by council earlier. The only thing really that you haven't seen is the notary fee update. So staff is proposing to increase the notary fee from $2 per stamp to $5. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from council? I do not see any. So is there a motion to adopt Resolution 20-468 to amend our citywide fee schedule?
So moved. Brainerd.
No. Second.
Second by Councilman Donahue. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I see no opposition, so Resolution 2468 is adopted unanimously. Next item of business is a discussion and possible action to approve an intergovernmental agreement concerning community development block grants. Mr. Sonny Colbreth. Want to unmute Sonny?
Can you hear me
All right,
now?
you're unmuted. Now we can hear you.
Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and council, you have my council communication as part of your packet. Also, along with that, you have some attachments. You have the notice of funding forms from Maricopa County Human Services Department. You have the grant application, and you have the IGA for services between Maricopa County and our city. You also have a letter that I requested be sent from the project coordinator, which explains actually why the remaining 35,000 from the actual 75,000 that was set aside is not part of the IGA. And the reason that the IGA only addresses the purchase of PPEs, which is barely over $40,000, is because the utility assistance funds are not reimbursable to us. They'll be administered by Human Services, and they're going to send me some information that we can publish that will let our residents know if they are in a situation that they require that due to COVID-19, then they can contact Maricopa County and access those funds. So that's what is part of your packet, as well as the council communication. Background on this is we received information May 1st about the availability of some funds that aren't usually available to us. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we aren't usually the beneficiary of any CDBG funds because of the financial stability of our community. But because of the COVID-19, these funds are authorized by the CARES Act, and we are eligible for them. It sets aside $75,000 for each of the urban communities within our area. And so we qualified for that. I met with the Human Services. I actually met with them on the phone and went over possible projects that we could be funded for. And the ones that were identified actually were part of just the Human Services. And they asked me if we had any senior care centers in our community at all, and that anybody in those would be eligible because, number one, they're typically of the age of people who are in danger of possibly are at risk of getting the virus, and they qualify for this. So we identified La Loma Village and Hacienda del Rey. I reached out to each of the coordinators of those facilities, and we discussed what their greatest need was, and as far as stopping the spread or keeping the spread from happening. And they each identified they need masks and they need gloves. And so we talked about a 3-month supply. And a 3-month supply means that each of the residents would be eligible to get 2 masks and 3 sets of gloves each day, for 3 months, for 90 days. We also received some vendor information and purchasing of those. And I used that to determine the amount of money that we should request from the grant. And that amount of money came to the 40,000, a little over 40,000. And so we did receive that. So that's going to leave approximately 35,000 that'll be set aside for the utility and assistance to our residents. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to address those.
Any questions from the council? I thought you had your hand up for a minute, Councilman Donahue. You almost faked me out. All right, seeing no questions, is there a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between City of Litchfield Park and Maricopa County for administration of the Community Development Block Grant Program?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilman, you got it? Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, seeing no opposed, that passes unanimously to approve the intergovernmental agreement. Next item of
Thank you,
business is
Mr. Mayor.
old.
I was saying thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. Appreciate you doing the good work to get the grant. So our senior citizen assisted living residents can benefit from the PPE. Okay, next item of business is the Old Litchfield Road crosswalks. Mr. Scouten, are you here?
Yes, I am, Mayor. Thank you very much, members of the council. As you know, we've had some concerns about pedestrian safety at the crosswalks on Old Litchfield Road, not only where the path crosses Old Litchfield Road at Staggs Park, but also down by the Via Nueva intersection. So we took a look at that, and the main concern seems to be associated with parking of cars too close to the sidewalk or to the crosswalk to allow good visibility of people as they're stepping out into the crosswalk. And also the existing crosswalks just consist of two white lines and aren't enhanced for better visibility. So we came up with a range of ideas on this, and the things that we could implement quickly and relatively inexpensively are shown on the attachments in your packet, the little maps. And basically what it consists of is establishing a no parking zone for at least about 50 feet ahead of the crosswalk, and then painting the curbs red. And in the case of the Staggs Park crosswalk, the northern one, that the painted curbs and the no parking zone would extend at least 50 feet beyond the crosswalk as well. So it gives drivers, and the same thing on the other side of the street. So it gives drivers good visibility and pedestrians good visibility. They won't be blocked by parked cars. We came up with two options for the Staggs Park crosswalk. One is a little more sign intensive than the other. Option A includes an additional crosswalk sign at the crosswalk itself. As you know, there's an existing pedestrian crosswalk warning sign ahead of the crosswalk, but the MUTCD allows additional signage if the engineer deems that it's a good idea to have an additional sign right at the crosswalk itself with a little arrow plaque beneath it. So the idea is that you establish no parking. The signs, the pedestrian signs are visible. We also put crossbars on the longitudinal bars on the crosswalk itself to make it much more visible. So that option A. Option B, basically for Staggs Park crosswalk, basically just utilizes the existing pedestrian warning sign, but adds the no parking zones on both sides of the street. And then at Via Nueva, we already have a no parking zone northbound as you're approaching Via Nueva, so we would leave that in place and then extend the no parking zone as you go through the intersection and past the crosswalk. We'd extend that no parking zone for about 50 feet to prevent people from parking too close to the sidewalk. And then we would establish a no parking zone on the southbound side that starts at least 50 feet before the sidewalk, and then extend that, the crosswalk, and then extend that beyond the crosswalk as well. And just to make sure that there's good visibility on vehicles approaching Old Litchfield Road on Villanueva, we would establish a no parking zone about 50 feet back from the intersection, and paint those curbs red as well. Those are our recommendations. The total cost of the project should be well under the $6,000 to $8,000 range that I mentioned in the staff report. I also tried to summarize the improvements in the staff report. I'm not sure how well that worked. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is that obviously with establishing no parking zones, we're going to be losing parking spaces. There are no marked parking spaces on Old Litchfield Road in that area, but using a standard parking spot length of 21 to 23 feet, I was able to determine that we would be losing on the order of a total of 14 parking spaces on Old Litchfield Road and 1 parking space on Villanueva approaching Old Litchfield Road. And with that, I'll ask for any questions, Mayor.
Questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, John Romack.
Councilman Romack.
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness to this meeting. I signed into a meeting, but they were speaking French, and I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, Woody, there's a couple of things. One, the crosswalk at Honeysuckle and Old Litchfield Road. I don't see that addressed on here. Did I miss something?
At Honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle, in other words, at Papa Paul's, there's a crosswalk going over toward the wigwam, and yet you have parking nosing right up to the crosswalk. You can't see people in the crosswalk.
Well, yeah, we can certainly look at it. I'm sorry.
Is this on the agenda?
No, it's not on the agenda.
Well,
We're talking about crosswalks. What am I missing?
talking about two specific crosswalks. I'm sorry.
We're talking about two specific crosswalks that impact the Staggs Park and the Lakeside Park as well.
I'm sorry, but the drawings that I'm looking at here don't show Staggs Park. I'm missing something. Staggs Park crosswalk option A. All right, whatever. All right, another time, another meeting.
What we will do is make sure staff takes up that question, Councilman Romack, so that they can bring us back any recommendations they may have.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Councilman Donahue.
This question's for Bill. So I know that I asked you about a couple of citizens, certainly people have been out more and so on, but this is the project that had started a couple of years ago that's just now been put in the forefront, correct? The same along the lake, that whole deal.
I know that you spoke to me about citizens that approached you regarding those crosswalks because of some near misses. So that's what this is about. I don't know if this is a continuance evolution from a project that began long ago, but this is something we've recently worked on based on the input that you provided.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions from council?
Vice Mayor, a question?
I'm sorry? Vice Mayor, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, please. Thank you. Woody, have you considered in this, I think there's something maybe in the CIP plan to do a parking lot. We've talked about it for years. It's partially in Stagg Park. It goes into the church parking lot, kind of a combo parking lot. Is that built into this crosswalk plan? Is that even been thought about still?
Mr. Vice Mayor, no. That project, I think, would have to be approved separately by the council. And the project you're talking about is the shared parking lot between the St. Peter's Episcopal Church and the city that would allow about 20 or 21 parking spaces to be built between Staggs Park and the church that would be available for use by both church members and park attendees. And of course, that would require some kind of an agreement between the church and the city to implement that. Now, the fact that we're losing...
That would be a separate agenda item.
Okay.
Okay,
We're losing 14 parking spaces. Do you have any idea where we're going to get 14 parking spaces?
was it 14?
Yes.
That's, Mr. Vice Mayor, that would be one idea, is to implement that agreement with the church. Another idea would be to simply take some of Staggs Park and turn it into a parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Donahue.
So is it 14, Woody? We literally lose 14 spaces in that drawing?
Yes, Councilwoman Donahue, that's what I have calculated based on the no parking zones that would be established.
Wow, okay.
We might be able to. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we might be able to tweak that down 1 or 2 spaces when we go out there and finally lay it out. You know, this is a calculation based on these sketches, but when we lay it out, we may be able to save 1 or 2 spaces.
And the enforcement.
We could also stripe it to make the parking more efficient, so that maybe that would cut back a little bit on the losses.
And the enforcement, I think, will be tricky, especially when they're playing soccer. You know, so they're gonna red curb that, but it hasn't been red curb before. So hopefully we have our sheriff around during the busy time. That's a lot of parking places, though I believe it, we should do it. That's a lot of them for the soccer parents and so forth.
Councilman Clare.
Woody, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Woody, any issues with lighting or concerned with making sure these are visible from a traffic point of view?
Not really, Councilmember Clare. The signs are all retro-reflective, so in the evening, you know, with headlights, they'll be perfectly visible. Now, should we implement lighting at the crosswalk itself? That's another project we could certainly look at.
That was my question.
Along lighting questions, Woody, I thought when we started discussing this program, we talked about actually putting in, or at least looking at the cost of putting in the system that it's a series of lights that outline the crosswalk, and those lights turn on whenever anyone goes into the crosswalk to use it. There's an example of that on Litchfield Road if you go down close to Western Avenue.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm familiar with that.
I thought we talked about looking at a system like that for these kinds of crosswalks where there was, you know, a lot of congestion and there were a lot of kids that were using them as a way of really stepping up the, you know, the visibility issue of whether or not, you know, there was someone in those crosswalks that would help drivers significantly.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, when we first started working on this, we did come up with a range of options that we could implement that basically go all the way from signage and painting curbs up to reconstructing the curb and gutter to make bulb outs, and that was one of the things that we consider. Obviously, all those things are much more expensive than simply putting up signs and painting curbs red. And you know, in an incremental approach like this, you typically start out with signage and no parking zones. If there continues to be a problem, then you start looking at lighting and other enhancements to, such as the in-pavement lighting for crosswalks, and you know, turn those into a capital project.
All right. Sounds like a good approach. Any other questions or comments from council?
Vice Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Well, thank you. It would seem to me if we're going to lose 14 parking spaces on Old Litchfield Road and 1 or 2 on Villanueva, we need to maybe direct staff. Maybe we can't direct them now, but they need to start thinking about accelerating, trying to figure out where these parking spaces are going to be picked up at. The usage at Staggs Park at times is pretty great. And I don't want to start pushing these people into the neighborhoods, and quite a bit further away for parking. We may wind up, if we lose these spaces, people may start parking on the other side of Staggs Park in the neighborhoods in there. And that wouldn't be fair to those residents. So I think we need to maybe, if we do this, continue on looking at how we're going to replace these parking spaces and maybe get some more.
Councilor Watson.
Hey, I would second what the Vice Mayor just said. I have a friend who lived over in there. Then they said it was really tough when soccer was going on to even safely get into their own driveways sometime. The other thing I would say we need to do is make sure we reach out to AYSO and any of the other organizations and make sure they make note on their information that goes out to coaches and families that the parking is going to be changed and to be cognizant of the red lines.
Okay, any other? Councilor Womack.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing, we get probably, I would say anywhere from 6 to 10 to 15 people parking in the church parking lot over there on any given Saturday. So to lose 14 spaces means that we're going to lose probably 14 spaces in our church parking lot. And so it's I have a real problem here, because if you were, as I said in that email before, that I probably shouldn't have sent out, but I did. If you were going to build Staggs Park today, you would be putting in anywhere from 7 to 10 parking places. They'd be required. So why not look at doing the option that we have, instead of spending more money on paint? Let's do it right. Let's find a solution and do it right, instead of doing this patchwork stuff. And I find that to be, that is not who Litchfield Park is. I think that when Litchfield Park makes a decision, we work hard at doing it right. And I think this is just a Band-Aid on a problem.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. This particular project is a safety measure as a result of some folks nearly getting run over in those crosswalks. It's not an effort to reduce parking, but as a result of increasing safety, we end up losing parking as we try to adjust this for safety reasons. That's the first point. The second point is we do have the project on our CIP for the joint city church parking venture. And so that could increase or potentially replace those lost parking spots if council should choose to enact that and have that particular project approved. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to direct staff to install signage, crosswalk markings, and red curbs for, you can choose whether A or B. The only difference in A and B are 2 signs. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Donahue. Is there a second?
Don't we need to choose A or B in that motion?
We probably should. It's, to be honest, there's really not a lot of difference between the two. It's whether it's 2 signs or 4 signs. So in your motion, Councilman Donahue, do you want 2 signs or 4 signs for no parking?
I'll go with 4.
Okay, so that's option A, I believe. So it's been moved to direct staff to do option A on Staggs Park and Villanueva crosswalks. Is there a second? Okay, I don't see a second, so it may die, and we'll just let it stay like it is for now.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Brainerd Watson.
can a motion be made to table this until we have the situation worked out with the church, and then combine the two together so that we're addressing it all in one fell swoop?
We can certainly bring it back. Right now, it does not have a second, so at this point, it doesn't need that. Nothing further needs to be done to it other than it can be considered in the future as part of a broader look at this problem.
Mr. Mayor,
All right. Yes, Councilman Clare.
the discussion of the additional parking with the church and Staggs Park and that combination, is there a timeline that we've got that plan is being out there?
Generally, what we've talked about is postponing any non-critical, non-essential emergency kind of capital projects until after we understand what's going to happen with this COVID situation.
All right, then if I have the opportunity to still make a second, I'm going to go ahead and make a second. It's $8,000 to make sure that we have safely something done until we can get the capital improvement together.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to recommend or direct staff to install option A concerning the crosswalks on Staggs Park and Villanueva. I actually think it's a very good idea to go ahead and get this part of it done. There is nothing in this that is going to change or alter whether we could decide or may not want to decide to put in additional parking next to the church. In the meantime, as we try to figure that out, it may end up saving someone's life. So I think it's a good expenditure of a small amount of money, particularly when the money will come out of our HERF account, which is restricted funds in which we've got significant cash balances. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm going to vote in favor of it. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Vice Mayor.
Councilor Romack.
Thank you. As you know, I'm a proponent of this parking lot next to the church. We've worked on it or brought it up now for a number of years. This does offer a solution to the problem of people crossing from the lake or from Staggs Park going, especially kids. We see that as a real problem area in our community. But to see this as a short-term solution, I'm going to vote in favor of it. But I want to reiterate that this is a short-term solution. This is not an answer to the problem.
Mr. Vice Mayor, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question deals with the 2 signs versus the 4 signs. A number of years back, we went through, I think, a signage inventory, Woody, and we deleted a bunch of signs because we kind of had sign overload. I'm having a hard time trying to visualize what all these extra signs are going to look like, and I'm kind of leaning toward putting in 2 signs, and if we don't like it and we need it, we can see it, then put in the extra 2 signs.
Question. Don't we have to have them on both sides? So you cross on this side or on that side, that's why we have to have 4 signs.
No, 2 signs, there's 1 sign on each side, 4 signs, there's 2 signs on each side. It's just a question of where those signs are placed. And I think the point the Vice Mayor is making is if we start out with 2 signs and we find out that we really need 4 signs, we can always add 2 more. And we can always take down 2 also, I suppose, but it's probably easier to know that there might still be a need if we start out with 2 and then went to 4 if it became indicated.
Yeah, actually my comment's just that I know exactly what they're talking about, and during COVID we rode our bikes every day, and it is extremely dangerous there, no question about this. So I still go for more. I think more is better.
All right, well, the motion's on the table is for 4. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing that, all those in favor of option of directing staff to install signage, crosswalk markings, and red curves for option A at Staggs Park and Villanueva crosswalks, please signify by saying aye. And this time we're gonna go slower so I can make sure I understand who's voting aye. So I'm gonna say aye. We got Councilman Romack's aye. Councilman Stosey's aye. Councilman Clare's aye. Councilman Donahue's aye. Councilman Brainerd Watson is aye. We just need to know the Vice Mayor's vote.
I'm an aye, with the understanding if we don't like it later, we can take 2 down.
It's a good understanding. All right. At this point, the ayes are 7-0, so we don't need to ask for nays. The direction is unanimous to install option A. Last item of normal business is Waste Management License Agreement Amendment number 3. Mr. Stevens.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a contract with Waste Management. It started in 2016. It expires June 30th of 2021 with the option to renew it twice, 1 year each. And what's built into the contract is an automatic consumer price index increase. So you're not talking about or voting on the consumer price index increase that's built into the contract. Tonight, just like 2 years ago, Waste Management is presenting a request because of the current world circumstances surrounding recycling. They're requesting, sorry, distracted by a cat for a second there. They're requesting a 49-cent increase in their recycling costs. 2 years ago, they requested a 46-cent increase. Last year, they didn't request, and then this year, they're requesting again, simply because of the world circumstances regarding the costs now for doing business with regard to recycling, since China has blocked out most of where we send our recycling goods. And so that's what is on the agenda for tonight, is that 49-cent increase. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Questions for the city manager? Councilman Romack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bill, you know, sitting around watching way too much TV, we're able to see some of these programs talking about recycling and the actually inundation of our oceans with plastic. I'd like to know where or what they want 49 cents more, but what are they doing with their plastics? What are they doing with their recycle? You know, they say this issue with China. Well, you know, there's Vietnam and Indonesia and a lot of other places that trash is going. But I'd like to know where it's ending up, and maybe Waste Management can help us with that.
Okay.
So we can certainly, as a future agenda item, ask Waste Management to come in and give us a report on recycling. I think they have done that in the past, and I know that they're always anxious to come in and talk to council, so we will invite them in.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council?
Vice Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think it's any big secret. I'm not a big Waste Management fan. There's extremely little doubt that if their cost to process this recycling had gone down, that they would be coming to us trying to with a decrease. It's interesting that they told us a few years ago they needed almost twice what they're asking for this time around as an increase. I struggle with this whole thing, and I will not vote to give them an increase over what our contract provides for now.
Any other questions or comments from council? Question to the city manager and maybe to our city attorney. If we do not provide for this increase, does the contract go away and we have to go back out to bid?
No, the contract stays in effect as currently written. The only issue may be next year or whenever the contract expires. There may be a negotiation period that we talk about an increase of some kind to catch up or pay for whatever costs they're supposedly not getting now regarding recycling. But the contract will stay in effect.
Do we have the ability under the contract to postpone the decision on this increase until they can bring us in some cost information to show that it's justified?
I would have to defer to Susan for that.
There's nothing that forces you at this time to approve this, so there's no reason you couldn't postpone it if you wanted to.
The current CPI will increase, though, as part of the contract.
Right. So I would suggest to council that we do not make a motion on this item, and we'll direct staff to take it back to Waste Management and ask them to bring us some background that will justify this increase.
Vice Mayor,
Hello, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I make a motion, we deny the increase.
Can we deny it with a request for backup information? Financial information?
You
I
can.
mean, they can always come back to the point and look at stuff, but they've not given it to us now. They've asked for an increase. They've not given us the backup information. I would just deny it now, and if they want to come back to us later, they can come back to us later.
All right, is there any other questions or comments from council? Yes, Councilman Donahue.
Have we had any other, isn't this our first request for backup, or have we had previous requests for backup information?
At the last,
If it hasn't been for several years.
Oh, okay.
I believe that when they requested this 2 years ago, they did come in and make a presentation about
Yes, they did.
why it was needed.
Yes.
Seems like they did. And it seems like we got some information and negotiated the actual number, but you know, my memory is not as good as it was 2 years ago.
It was not approved 2 years ago, not the recycling increase.
So they brought it down, and we turned it down, period?
Period.
You didn't approve it.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Culbreth.
I believe city manager has minutes from that meeting. It was initially not approved, and then there was a discussion, and then it was approved 4-3 the last time they asked for it.
All right.
My memory's not good either.
I thought that it had been approved, but I wasn't certain. So at this point, we have a motion from the Vice Mayor to not approve the amendment number 3. Is there a second for that motion? All right, Mr. Vice Mayor, there's not a second for your motion, so I'm not sure where that leaves us, other than we're not going to approve and we're not going to disapprove, or maybe we're going to approve. Is there a motion to approve amendment number 3 with the increase in recycling costs? Councilman Watson.
Can I make the motion that we get more information before we make this decision, and maybe ask staff to find out what their costs have, evolved into with COVID and with the relationship with China being the way it is? I imagine it is a lot more expensive, but it would be nice to have those real numbers before we, either choose yes or no on this.
So I think the motion is to deny the amendment number 3 with the direction to staff to go back and ask for additional information if they want this increase. Is that fair? Additional financial information. That motion's been seconded by Councilman Romack. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to deny the amendment number 3 with direction to staff to obtain more financial information if they want to move forward and discuss it further. All those, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, looks like we got all ayes except Vice Mayor. How do you vote?
I voted aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then we're 7 ayes, The motion passes unanimously. That ends the regular agenda, so is there a motion to adjourn? So moved by Tom Rostosi. Councilman Rostosi moves to adjourn. Is there a second? Councilman Donahue. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Does anyone need a break before we start the special council meeting? All right, then we'll call the special council meeting to order. The business in this meeting, there are two business items. Both concern budgets. First item is a resolution 20-472 to adopt the final city budget for fiscal year 2021. We've had a presentation by the finance director, Mr. Lars. Are there any further questions for Mr. Lars before we take up whether to adopt this resolution? Anybody in the council have any further questions? If not, is there a motion to adopt resolution 20-472 for the final fiscal year 2021 budget and to approve the position roster and 5-year capital plan?
So moved, Tom.
Second.
Councilor Rostosi makes a motion, seconded by Councilman Brainerd Watson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion is adopted unanimously to adopt resolution 20-472. Now we have a resolution 20-473, which are the SLID budgets for fiscal year 2021. We have heard a presentation by our Director of Finance, Mr. Johnson. Are there any further questions of Mr. Johnson by anyone on the council? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt resolution 20-473 for the SLID budgets for 2021?
So move.
Moved by Councilman Romack. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Donahue. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting resolution 20-473 for the SLID budgets for fiscal year 2021, please signify by saying aye.
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 Looks like all ayes. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Aye.
All right, resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mayor, can I make a quick comment? I just want to say
Go ahead.
thank you to Lars. I want to say thank you to Lars for what he's done, getting this budget together and carrying this as far as he's taken it. A big thank you.
Amen. You bet.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Yes, and we do appreciate your efforts on the budget and the fact that you were more than willing to stick around and help us out and get through the transition, at least the first part of the transition from your time as finance director to Paige's time as finance director. I'm sure we'll see you around a little bit further if Paige has questions, and we appreciate all the support I'm sure you'll give her as we transition her into that position. So thank you, Lars, and thank you for the service that you did provide to the city, because it was all exemplary.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
We've got a lot of paper here. All right, so I'm not sure we ever got our motion to adjourn. Did we? My city clerk says no. So let's start again. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
This is the special meeting of the City Council. Moved by Councilman Romack. Seconded by Councilman Clare. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Now we're going to go into a meeting of the Community Facilities District for the Village at Litchfield Park. The meeting is open. We do not need to pledge because it was recited during the regular meeting. Business is to consider the Community Facilities District budget for fiscal year 2021. I have a staff presentation. I'm not sure if that's Lars or if that's someone else.
That would be me if there's any questions from council. Just reiterate a couple things. That is, the district's levy covers the debt service exactly for the next fiscal year. That's $363,650. Again, the same thing as the streetlight improvement districts. The rate is going down slightly as a result of property values going up. And the debt for the district will be paid off July 15th of 2026.
Okay, any questions for the, Mr. Johnson? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who are here who would like to ask the finance director any questions about the CFD budget for 2021? And so that I get in compliance with the city attorney, who I know wants to look nasty at me, even though she's trying not to. Public hearing is open.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Next item is to adopt the CFD budget under Resolution 20-39 for fiscal year 2021. Is there a motion to adopt CFD Resolution 20-39 to adopt the proposed budget of $363,650 for fiscal year 2021 for the Village at Litchfield Park Community Facilities District?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Donahue. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Brainerd Watson. Any discussion? All those in favor of passing or adopting Resolution 20-39 for the CFD budget for fiscal year 2021, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, adopted unanimously. Next item is to consider adopting or approving the minutes from our May 20th, 2020 regular meeting of the CFD district. Is there a motion to adopt? Motion to approve?
Vice Mayor, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Romack seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the May 20th, 2020 regular meeting minutes for the CFD, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Watson, seconded by Councilman Ostosi. All right. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for turning up for our meeting. We appreciate it. Have a nice evening. We actually got done in pretty much record time for 3 different meetings and saying goodbye to Lars.
Yeah, in the budget, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Lars.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank you.